Man, this is an exciting day at Klemic Performance Method. I'm here with Dr. Ryan Buccafurni and Dr.Brad Tucker from Rothman Institute. I'm David Klemic, hosting the Klemic Performance Method video newsletter / the symposium of minds right now. I'm excited to be in the building with you guys. So neat to have Dr. Tucker on here alongside of somebody I work a lot with, Dr. Ryan Buccafurni, and we're going to go over a whole bunch of stuff today. I think like one of the most exciting things that I can do is be in the same conversation with the both of you, because a lot of us are going from surgery to physical therapy back to me. Sure. And it's this rotating, hopefully they never see you again, but this rotating carousel that we try to like work with each other on instead of fighting each other on or trying, I'm in this conversation a lot with you guys. And Dr. Tucker, you're one of the most respected doctors I've ever heard of. I've never even heard. Like, your reputation is so sterling that it's like shit blinds me. You look great in a suit too, man. Me and Ryan like in our pajamas and everything. But I'm gonna go over some stuff with you today because I just had I have a lot of questions, but there's a lot of stuff that I think that you value now more than ever with the most updated data and studies that you have seen. It's hard to get us to stop talking before we even caught on the air because we had so much to say. But in the meantime, I just welcome to the Klemic Performance Method Studio, and this is great for our athletes, for our audiences who individually have our own audiences. To get this information out to everyone is so valuable because you're going to hear it from, like you're saying before, you're going to hear from TikTok, then you're going to hear from somebody more famous on TikTok, and then you're going to believe it more because they have more followers, and this is how it works, and hopefully we're going to give it to you right from the source, right here on this show in this studio. So without further ado, we'll get
into play testing has its limits, and I think the tracer, and gets me excited, is that if we can hook them up to a tracer, we can have true objective data even better than what we're doing now. And that's why the return to play testing, it's still evolving, it's progressing, it needs to continue to evolve because we're not perfect at it. But something like the tracer, that's kind of game changing for me.
All right, so that was our first commercial from the Tracer, which is our sponsor. Appreciate everything that you've done and believing in us as a company. And, we were just showing the thing off a little bit in front of Ryan the other day, and we're going to show Dr. Tucker a little bit about that right after the show. So, Doc, I wanted, before we even get you into your own material, why don't you talk about how good of a clinician that Mr. Buccafurni is over here?
Yeah, please.
He's amazing. I mean, he pretty much has the monopoly on all the athletes around here now, and it's because of his good work. I mean, he pretty much takes care of every high school, college, and even professional athlete in the area because of the results. I mean,
no, thank you, Doc.
When he rehabs one of my surgeries, one of my shoulder or knee surgeries, it makes me happy because I know they're going to do well.
That's awesome. Thank you. And I appreciate, again, Dr. Tucker. This is the one ortho that's in constant communication. So that's always been, I think, we always want what's best for our clients, and the fact that I can call him, text him, give him updates. I think that's always been awesome. I know it's going to be a phenomenal surgery, and then we're going to have dialogue the whole time if there's any issues, and it just makes my life so much easier. Same thing when it's coming from something Doc does. So I feel very blessed that he even sent a patient to me, trust me. So
right, especially because I think the three of us, one thing that we really do have in common is that we care the most.
100%.
I mean, that's something that I've noticed, the people that really care the most, sometimes that's more meaningful than, whatever, the outcomes obviously are very important, but people that care and call you and check in, it means a ton. So I guess it's not bedside manner. That would be, what would you call that? What kind of it's not bedside manner, it would be.
I think it's being empathetic, caring why we got into what we got, doing our best.
Ryan will reach out to me once a week at least, tell me about some athletes, and if I have an athlete that's going to be going to him and there's something a little unusual, I'll give him a call ahead of time. And if he's pretty much been in the operating room with me for every type of different surgery we do, just so he understands how do we fix a certain, whether it's the ACL or labrum or rotator cuff. So he kind of knows what's going on in the operating room, and it gives him a better understanding on how to rehab the person.
For sure. So whole different perspective.
It's a good team.
Sure.
And then we'll go into a little bit about what you do and who you operate on and who you work with. He's the team doctor of the Philadelphia 76ers and the Philadelphia Phillies.
Well, yeah, I've been with the Phillies for probably close to 16, 17 years, but I stopped taking care of the Sixers. I did take care of the Sixers for about 8 years, so now I'm just with the Phillies. And we have spring training.
You still get credit for it. You still 8 years is a good credit for that, though.
So it definitely gave me some experience with professional basketball players. It's every sport has different nuances to it.
Yeah, that was what I was going to ask you. One of my I kind of questioned, and I deal with being a professional athlete myself, and I remember the different levels of physical qualities or mental qualities and stuff, that things that it took usually were off of the field that athletes had as they moved up levels, as the stakes were higher, the money was bigger. What are the things that you've seen as the professional athlete versus the amateur or collegiate athlete that you just see in those pros? You kind of dived into it a little bit ahead of time.
Well, I mean, it's if you think about it, most of these athletes hit their, especially male athletes, they hit their man strength at age 25. They're at their peak. And then as they start aging, getting into upper 20s, even early 30s, they start feeling the effects. They start feeling overused, their body's sore. So they pay a lot more attention to their bodies, and sleeping and diet and exercise is way more important than the young 20 or mid 20-year-old. They can just do whatever they want. They can stay up all night, eat whatever they want, party all they want, and they can perform just as well. But as they get older, they realize that they gotta work at it. So you see the older athletes now really paying attention to diet and exercise a little bit more.
Mainly when I remember being in the Kansas City Chiefs locker room, and I was a football player and everything, but there was like you said, the rookies used to go eat the fried chicken and everything, and eat the whatever they brought over. We would have our lunches sponsored by some company or whatever, and the older guys would stay away from that and get into the more healthy type of stuff, because your body, like we always knew what our combine scores were, and if we could come back to our combine scores every single year, if we would train ourselves to be able to run a certain 40 and vertical leap and this and that, and run our conditioning tests the same, we would be close as we could to what we're be able to output on the field. At least a good measurement from there. As a matter of fact, when I broke my leg in a game, I tried to get myself back to those numbers so they couldn't say, well, he broke his leg, he's not the same guy anymore. So that's important to me. When you guys do your surgery and your physical therapy, it's the same way. People have they want to get back to where they were. And I even seen the posters that Rothman puts up on, the Black Horse Pike or the not even the Expressway, and it'll say like, get back to your old self and everything. So these surgeries that we're doing now are the physical therapy that we're using are these techniques changing the speed that it can get back and heal from these knee injuries and hip injuries?
Yes and no. I mean, we try to do surgery like an ACL, for example. Over the past 10 years, we've gotten better with the anatomic placement of the ligament. We have more data knowing which is the best graft to use. And then, with people like Ryan, we've gotten quicker, earlier rehab to try to kind of decrease how much muscle atrophy or muscle wasting and weakness there's going to be. So we try to hit, if you can fix the ligament really strong and can heal really strong, you can start rehab early. So early rehab is really the key. If you can do early rehab, then you can get, part of your recovery is getting motion back, getting strength back, getting muscle girth back, right? But some of the healing we can't control, like the healing of the tissue, or we call revascularization, because like an ACL injury, we have to make a new ligament. So that new ligament has to grow a new blood supply to survive. So you can't really change that. That's why ACL injuries are a whole season.
That's what you've said several times. Yeah.
No matter what.
Yeah, and I know some of the stuff that you were passionate about getting into with nutrition and what you're putting in your body in order for things to heal a certain way. I'm sure there's ways that you can hurt healing processes times and stuff like that too. So about you valuing nutrition and your vegan dieting now, and how aging and inflammation has been a something that you're very passionate about. And I mean, if you could just go into that a little bit, go ahead and just freestyle with that for us.
Yeah, everyone says eat a healthy diet, right? What's that mean?
Right.
Nobody knows what a healthy diet is. I think we do know, but when I went to medical school, I never got a class on nutrition. I never got a class on supplements. I never got a class on hormones or even, how to exercise, strength training, all these things, right? And what do you hear on TV or, Instagram Reels or TikToks? They say, well, ask your doctor. Well, doctors don't know. We never got this. We never got training on it. So it just happens to be that I'm a sports doctor, and for the past 20 years, athletes ask me these questions. So I'm like, well, I got to figure it out. I got to learn. I got to learn the answer.
Sure.
And most people go to Google when they want to find information. The advantage of being a doctor is that I do research. I'm an associate professor at Jefferson, so I do actually real peer-reviewed research. So it gives me the ability to actually search real data. Like we have these databases that all doctors and scientists around the world, they publish. And when you make a claim and you publish, it's peer-reviewed, meaning you put it out there and other doctors read your research and they try to prove you wrong. Or they try to reproduce your results, and over time, your data gets peer-reviewed, and then it becomes dogma over time. I saw this sort of anecdote that before the Surgeon General came out and said cigarette smoking causes lung cancer, there were 7,000 articles that came out before we as a society said, okay, guess what? Cigarette smoking is bad for us. It causes cancer. So right now, we live in a world where, look at the American diet, what it's doing to us. Processed foods, high in meat and cheeses, and the whole world is getting obese. And we could talk for hours about this, but I do believe that there's enough evidence out there that being a full plant-based vegan is the best diet. And the biggest hurdle, and I believe this too, everyone believes, right? High protein, low carb. Well, that's a myth. In fact, there's been books written on it. Like there was a doctor who specializes in gastric bypass surgery wrote a book called The Proteinaholic. And the really data shows that we don't need all that protein that we think we need. And carbs are good for us, especially athletes. We need carbs. Every cell in your body uses glucose, which is a simple carb, for energy. So we have to get it somehow. If you don't take carbs in your body has to make glucose. And guess where it makes it from? It breaks down amino acids in your skeletal muscle to make it. So you have to get carbs. Carbs gives you energy. So, and it's been shown that you can get all the essential amino acids you need. Amino acids are the building blocks of protein. You can get all the essential amino acids you need from plant-based sources. And the advantage of being plant-based is if you look at eating plant-based, decreases inflammation, decreases oxidation. So as an athlete, you can recover faster. A lot of professional athletes are looking into eating more plant-based to try to get quicker recovery, less inflammation, things like that. And then I guess it depends on who we want to talk about. Do we want to talk about a young athlete or do we want to talk about a middle-aged person? Me at 53 years old, I have a different outlook. I want to be healthy. I want to live a long life. I still work out. I lift weights and I work out. I do cardio. I want to be active. But I look at it more of having a long health span. And the data is showing that lower calorie, lower protein is more associated with a longer lifespan.
Well,
Even you guys probably heard of the Blue Zones, right? The Blue Zones, there's actually a documentary on Netflix about it. There's 5 communities on the planet Earth that people typically would live to 100 years of age, and they studied their diets and showed that their diets were 90-95% plant-based. In fact, the Loma Lindens that live in Southern California are 100% plant-based. And these are the healthiest people on the planet. It is hard to study longevity, right? Because we live too long to study. It's not like you can take 2 groups of people, feed one of them meat, one of them animals, and say, what happens.
Sure.
But a very famous article, a very famous journal called JAMA, you ever heard of that? It's a medical journal. They just published an article where they actually took 22 sets of identical twins. So you kind of control for genetics, and they gave one an omnivore diet, which is plants and animals, and one just a plant diet. And then they looked at biological age, they looked at blood flow, they looked at parameters like insulin, glucose, triglycerides, visceral fat. Visceral fat is the fat around your organs that creates problems. We can talk about that too. But the twin that went on the vegan diet, the full plant diet, really pretty much won in every category. Decreased visceral fat, increased biological age, decreased cholesterol, decreased insulin, blood glucose, blood pressure, like all those parameters. So it really pans out. And then even, how about this? Have you ever heard of the China study? Back in the 70s, the emperor of China was dying of cancer, and he was very fascinated with cancer. So he studied cancer in his country of China, and he sent out all these researchers to look at who has cancer in his country, and they put together an atlas of the cancer clusters in China. And then about 10 years later, a researcher, a PhD from Cleveland Clinic, got together with this Chinese PhD from China, and they went back to China, and they got all these researchers, sent them out to all these cancer clusters, and studied their diets. And long story short is, they basically found that these cancer clusters were associated with these villages, their ability to get animal protein. The more animal protein consumption, the more higher rates of cancer. They basically found that plant proteins kind of decrease cancer risk, and animal proteins increase cancer risk.
Wow.
Well,
And we've known that for a long time.
these are hard to argue with, especially with the twin studies and everything.
Yeah.
It's always hard to go and figure that out unless you had two of the exact same thing. And then, we have twins run in my family as well. And I have a set of twins, Stephanie and Brittany. One's a vegan and one is not, right? And Stephanie always has is the healthier of the two,
Right.
and the other one's sick, but isn't that growing up? And I mean, this is probably started when she was maybe 20 years old. She's 31, both of them, and always the one is having the issues. Well, then now they both are vegans now.
Yeah.
So it's a pretty neat thing that you're
There's
saying.
also, the other thing is, when you eat meat, you have this bacteria, and your meat eaters have this bacteria in their gut. It's called a bad bacteria that turns the certain molecules that are found in meat and cheese and eggs into a molecule called trimethylamine, TMA. And that molecule gets absorbed into your body and gets oxidized in the liver and becomes TMAO. There's a big Harvard study that showed that TMAO is associated with heart attack, stroke, and death. And if you test vegans, they don't really have these bad bacteria, so they don't really have high levels of this molecule. And if you feed a vegan steak, they don't have a whole lot of bad bacteria in their gut, so they're not really going to make a lot of TMAO. So this is why I became a fully plant-based vegan, because decreased, if not eliminated, TMAO, decreased cancer risk, decreased inflammation, decreased oxidation. We also know diabetes, type 2 diabetes. Everyone thinks it's caused from eating too much sugar. It's actually caused by saturated fat from animals. If you take the pancreas out, which is the organ in your body that secretes insulin, you can drip saturated fat from animals on the cells that create insulin, and it shows it can kill the cells and cause them to involute and go down. So the saturated, as someone gets more visceral fat around the organs, it gets in the cells, the extra fat, and blocks the prevention of insulin to bind to the cell. Insulin is a hormone that's necessary for sugar to get in your cell so your body can utilize sugar. So if it can't get in the cell, it elevates in your blood. And here's the other one. I'm really going sciencey on this.
I love
Well,
it.
yeah, I'm fascinated. I'm probably the dumbest person watching the show too.
I'm thinking I'm going to die in a year.
there's a molecule called an AGE, an advanced glycation end product. AGEs are basically glycotoxins. Basically, there's two ways the human body gets AGEs. You can either eat them or make them. Your body makes them from having too much glucose, too much sugar in your blood. Like type 2 diabetics have a lot of this because their sugars are always elevated, so they have a lot of AGE formation. The other way to get AGEs, cooking animals.
Oh, jeez.
You cook an animal, that burnt food, that burnt grilled chicken, that's all like loaded. First of all, it's loaded with carcinogens, acyclic nitrosamines, these molecules that cause that directly. If you look on, there's this, list of like carcinogens, like, and it's really high up on there as mutating DNA causing cancer. So besides that, that causes AGE formation. So you're eating that from getting animals. Now you can boil or steam meat and get less production of it, but not many people eat that.
Right.
Because if you eat meat in a stew, you have less AGE formation. So what does an AGE do? AGE is a big sticky molecule and it sticks to collagen. Where is collagen? Collagen is the molecule that makes up your skin. It makes up your tendons. This is where sports comes in. It makes up your tendons. It makes up your ligaments, your cartilage, your joints, everything. So what it does is collagen microscopically glides by each other. So if you put a big molecule to stick them together, they cause little microscopic cracks and breaks. That's why, like, for me, when I operate on like a middle-aged diabetic, their tendons are terrible. And the way like young people are now, I just recently, usually like a biceps injury, someone tears their biceps down by their elbow, usually happens to middle-aged people. I operated on this guy who was like really young. He was like in his like early 30s and he tore his biceps. And when I got in there, he was very, very overweight, like 100 pounds overweight. And when I got in there, his tendon just was like laden with fat and it had all this tendinitis in it. And that's all just accumulation over time. That AGEs over time. If you eat meat all the time, you believe it or not, you're damaging your body from the inside.
You're truly aging. You're aging out. It's crazy. Why is it?
And that's how you damage your arteries.
Right.
Because you've heard of atherosclerosis that builds up in your arteries. Well, it's the LDLs, the bad cholesterol. You heard of the bad cholesterol that sticks to your arteries. Well, it only sticks to like the damaged arteries. Well, that's one of the way the artery gets damaged by inflammation, oxidation. You oxidize the LDLs. That's what sticks. You have this damaged cartilage. It's all the same thing. So when you see a middle-aged or younger person that has atherosclerosis and heart disease, they probably have bad tendons and joints too.
It's wild.
It's the same problem.
Can I jump in real quick? Yeah. Why don't more of us know this? Like, isn't that frustrating to think? Like, I just learned more in the last 10 minutes. Again, in PT school, I think we might have had a half-hour lecture on nutrition, right? And if it was probably the base of the base. I don't even remember it. And again, what was always pumped in my world was come from a meathead world too. It was like a gram to 2 grams of protein, minimal carbs, and like at times I've looked good, felt good for short periods of time, but sustaining a diet like that, I've just been up and down between, like, again, personally, like gaining weight, then after losing weight, and stomach issues, right? So anyway, but again, like, why isn't this more out there?
It's a good question. I don't really have a good answer because I was never taught this. I had to self-teach myself this, and they don't teach doctors and nurses about nutrition. And even nutrition classes, like dietitians and nutritionists, they take classes. Unfortunately, they're written by, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but a lot of it is government policy. Let's face it. Things happen in this country because of money, right?
Sure.
It's politicians have to run their campaigns. They need money to run their campaigns. The money comes from industry. It comes from cattle and beef farmers. It's the reason why 7,000 articles had to come out before we knew cigarette smoking was bad for us.
As well.
And it's really, meat and cheese is basically the next cigarette smoking on how bad it is for you.
It's wild.
I mean, I think now the world knows that at least processed meat's bad for you.
Right. Let's accept
That's
that.
come
We're
out.
accepting
That's
that now.
come out. It's almost
eat a
like,
hot
all
dog.
right, let's throw the wounded animal out. Take us off the trail. Throw the processed meat. We all know that's bad for you.
Yeah.
We can accept that, but it's a good question. Like, I don't even know.
What about, so for you, I've known you for a while too, and you've always been in good shape.
Yeah.
Right. So you're not this person that was a fat guy that's now a skinny guy.
Yeah.
So how is this diet? When did it start, and what has it done for
That's a good
you?
question.
And why are you so passionate about it?
So I'll tell you what happened. Like, I'm 53 years old. And
You look like you're 33, by the way.
Thank you. So when I was early 40s, probably about 10 years ago, my dad has all his joints replaced, very bad arthritis. He's still alive, he's like 82, but he had all his joints replaced. And
Do you know a surgeon that could have done that?
Some of my partners, I think. But anyway, I started waking up in my early 40s, and I was having pain in all my joints, including my fingers, and it scared me because I was like, I'm trying to operate, and my groins are hurting, my knees are hurting, my ankles are hurting, my fingers are hurting, even when I'm operating. And I was like, oof, I got to figure this out. Like, I can't have arthritic symptoms now in my 40s. So just without any knowledge whatsoever, I said to myself, all right, I'm going to stop all processed food, all sugars, and I'm going to eat plants and animals. I'm going to go paleo. It's just random. I really didn't have any science background other than just my biases from living in this country and the biases we hear our whole lives that we have to eat protein, we have to eat meat to be healthy.
Correct.
So I started just doing that on my own. And you know what? I felt better right away, a little bit. Felt better.
Joints feel better,
I
just weight.
just felt a little bit better, just in general. I didn't have as much pain, and I was still lifting weights and working out. And I just got on this this sort of kick. I started testing myself. I was wearing a glucose monitor. I was trying to figure out what was healthy because nobody knew. So I started doing.
Your blood work was pretty good at the time.
Yeah, I started doing a lot of different blood work on myself. I started kind of testing myself. I was testing myself. I started looking into supplements, thinking, maybe if I take supplements, that would be better. I was doing supplements, and I just started reading more and more, and I started uncovering articles about the negative effects of eating, animal protein. So I didn't want to believe it. So I just thought, well, maybe I'll just decrease how much animal protein I eat. So I ended up.
That's what I was thinking. I'll decrease
Yeah,
it.
So it ended up, over time, I got rid of it for breakfast, and I got rid of it for lunch, and I was just eating meat at dinner. And it was a struggle because, I have a stay-at-home wife and my mother-in-law live with us, and they're the ones that cook the meals, and I would be coming home every night, and I have 2 daughters, and I'd be coming over every night and saying, okay, I don't want to eat this anymore, I don't want to eat that anymore. And then I would look at the door, and they would all roll around at me. They're like, oh, what's hippie dad going to say about eat now, They're like, so it was kind of a joke. Everyone thought I was crazy, but everyone kind of made some changes with me, and I kept eating. So now I got it down to just a little bit of meat at night with dinner, mostly vegetables. And I was like, man, I just kept reading more and more articles on the benefits of plant-based eating, and I made the full 100% change probably about 3 years ago, where I went 100% vegan. And I've never looked back. And I stumbled upon this Dr. Michael Greger, who wrote a book, How Not to Die. And now he just wrote a new one, How Not to Age. And he has a non-for-profit, basically group of researchers that scan all the databases for peer-reviewed research. And he bases all his information on research. He gets no funding from anybody, no industry. I wish I would have read his books 10 years ago. It wouldn't have taken me 7 years to make this transition. But he has an app even to help you to make sure that you're getting all the correct nutrients you need. And I made the switch. My wife and daughters switched a little bit, but they didn't make a full switch yet. And then unfortunately, my wife got breast cancer, and we would go to these big cancer centers and ask them like, hey, okay, we're gonna do what's recommended. We're gonna have surgery. We're gonna have radiation. We're gonna do whatever. What should we do from a diet point of view? You have the best cancer centers in the world, and they all say eat healthy, but they won't tell you what eating healthy is.
Wow.
So I started doing even more of a deep dive into breast cancer and seeing the correlation of breast cancer and like animal protein, and especially eggs, and dairy is associated with neurodegenerative diseases and prostate cancer, things like that. And then you start reading about, prostate, PSA, and dairy, and all this stuff. So I would every night or every morning I would go down these wormholes of like reading literature, and I just felt so strongly about it that I was telling my wife about it. She felt very strongly about it too. She went fully vegans. Now I have 2 daughters, and they're like, "That's it, mom. Mom got cancer. We are at higher risk now for cancer." So now they went. So now as a whole family, we all do it plant-based. And a lot of people, struggle with giving up cheese, but believe it or not, there are some amazing recipes that you can make vegan cheese. That's awesome.
Yeah, my mother-in-law is a clinical nutritionist. My wife is a clinical nutritionist. She gets stage 3 cancer patients, and she right off the meat right away.
Yeah.
Put the meat, no more meat, and that's like right away. So I hear this a lot, and my wife has almost got me completely off of it, except for every now and then she gets steak from somewhere that is organic or however that works, and I'm the same way. I eat what you give me, and because she'll tell me this is like, there's some pretty good alternatives. I'm like, I don't know. I'm lactose intolerant, so I don't drink dairy anyway, or cheese. So she's giving me stuff that's cheese that's made out of whatever. Yeah. And I'm like, pretty good. It's there. But have you ever spoken about this like publicly at all? So this is cool because it's the first time you're hearing it from him, and it's right here. And also I think this is just like crazy because it's hard to argue with that much research done by a doctor. People say, ask your doctor all the time, ask your doctor, right? And you're admitting it that you don't know. So you had to do this. It's not that you learned it in school. You had to do this on your own. Some people that's the only research they have is what you're going to see right here. So this is awesome. I'm so glad that you opened up on that. I highly
recommend it. If anyone's interested, there is a doctor, Michael Greger. He has a website called nutritionfacts.org. You sign up for his website. It's free. He sends you little 5-minute video vlogs or blogs every week on a particular topic. Right now he's on a kick on longevity because he just wrote a book on longevity, but he has a catalog of like thousands of videos that he's already done. Like little things like, you ever notice people are like health food people are on a kick about coconut oil, coconut this, coconut that. And they talk about coconut oil being so good because it has MCT oil. You ever hear that?
Sure.
Well, it turns out that, so just so you know, saturated fat comes from animals. Saturated fat, not to get technical, it's basically a long carbon chain that has a lot of hydrogens. Every bond is bonded to hydrogen. That's saturated. That means the carbon is saturated with hydrogen. Those saturated fat are long chains of hydrogen and carbon. They increase your bad cholesterol, and that's not good. The thing about MCT oil is MCT is a short chain saturated fat that doesn't bump your cholesterol. And it apparently, can cross the blood-brain barrier. So people assume that this MCT oil is good for your brain. That's what they say. Though I'm not sure there's any research that says it's good for your brain, but it doesn't bump your cholesterol. So you can get MCT oil from coconut oil. So people are saying, these health experts are saying, oh my God, you should do coconut oil. It's got MCTs. It's so good for you. Well, it turns out that 90% of the saturated fat in coconut oil is long chain. That does bump your cholesterol. And only 10% is MCT. So I wouldn't really recommend doing a lot. Like, I wouldn't recommend switching your olive oil to coconut oil, is what I'm saying.
When I did keto for a minute, the one thing they were saying, and I did it for like a couple of weeks, you're putting the coconut oil in my coffee. And I don't want, again, talk about being stupid. And same thing, then after you do it for a little bit, you're like, this doesn't taste good. This doesn't seem right. Like I have this oil dripping down. I did, like, this is right. Yeah. But I feel like it maybe cognitively helped me. Like then I'm maybe placebo thinking like I'm a little sharper. But anyway, long story short is like I fell into a lot of those rabbit holes, and again, just still kind of trying to find my way, right?
Well, it's a shame because we're all inundated with so much information. We don't know what to believe.
Yeah, sure.
We don't know what to believe, and that's why I really like getting these little videos, because he does the research for us.
Yeah.
He has a team of researchers that will go out through all the databases, the medical databases, and pull all, like, whatever topic he wants. Like, let's say it's coconut oil. He'll go out and pull out all the articles on coconut oil, and he'll summarize it for you in a 5-minute little vlog or blog.
Yeah, it's cool.
And you listen to it, and it's all peer reviewed, and he'll tell you, this has high evidence, this has low evidence. I don't know the answer, I do know the answer, and it's really, really nice. And he has all the materials to help you become fully plant-based vegan if you want to.
Well, yeah. I love this information, and what we're going to do is take all this, and we get so many frequently asked questions, and the main thing is we get, what should we do in the weight room? I shoot it over. What should we do as far as, what should we be eating? How should we diet? How should we supplement? So now I can refer right back to this video, and I can say, here you go, right here. After you come back from this break, we're going to go into a little bit more details on what exactly do you eat in a day that's a typical meal, and then how can we kind of structure ourselves to stop aging as much. I mean, some of our athletes and stuff, they're not concerned about that, but the tendons and ligaments, they definitely are. So we'll come back after break, and we'll come back with Dr. Buccafurni and Dr. Tucker.
Learn to play testing has its limits, and I think the tracer, and gets me excited, that if we can hook them up to a tracer, we can have true objective data even better than what we're doing now. And that's why the return to play testing, it's still evolving, it's progressing, it needs to continue to evolve because we're not perfect at it. But something like the tracer, like that's kind of game changing for me.
All right, so kind of blown away by the last segment we just had, and that was our Tracer commercial. Again, we're super we're blessed to have a company like Tracer believe in what we do as a medical product that's kind of working with the sports performance industry, and it's a neat thing that they've helped us so much, and that. Ryan was impressed by the product, and he's showing off to Dr. Tucker. You'll see. I think you'll really like it. But anyway, what we were going into was a lot of data and a lot of information and everything like that. And so this is so neat because the reason why we do this in the first place is just because we get so many questions about things, and we're like, I'm going to stay away from that one. Sure. Because I don't really know the answer, right? And then when you ask a doctor who's done a ton of research on it, this is exactly why we do this. When we have you on here and giving all this information away, because it's over my head. I don't want to talk about it. I will let you refer to the expert, and it gives our athletes an edge. It gives all of our listeners and on all our platforms an edge.
But I think it's pretty cool, Doc, because we have the science, the journals, the peer-reviewed stuff, and then anecdotal evidence, like he's living it, his family's living it. Yeah. So like, it can't get much more convincing than that.
Yeah.
The data, the stats, and
the one thing that I've noticed with any of the data, it almost doesn't connect to the person until they meet the person that's actually done it, right? 100%. So when you meet the person, you're like, they did that. I remember almost everybody you say, well, I know this guy that smoked cigarettes to the day he died, and he lived 110 years old. Like, well, that blows all my data right out.
I love that. I love that.
I get the outlier all the time.
I love that analogy. Everyone has an Aunt Ruth.
Drinks whiskey.
We say that all the time. We're like, well, Herschel Walker only did push-ups. And he was that good despite only doing 100 push-ups. Guy could have lived to his 150 or whatever. So it's neat to hear that you've done this too. So give us run us a typical meal. You wake up this time, you work out, you eat this, and boom, boom.
Yeah, oof. I'm a little crazy, by the way.
All right.
I do intermittent fast. That's a whole other conversation. So I wake up in the morning. I wake up at 4:30 every morning. I'm really into sleep. I wear a Whoop. They don't pay me to say this. I wear a Whoop to monitor my health parameters while I'm sleeping. When I went through this whole process, I was worried, just like you guys worried, like, am I going to get enough protein? Is it going to mess up my hormones? So I would write myself prescriptions and I would test my hormones and I would I bought a glucose monitor. This is before people had like these glucose monitors, and I would test myself and I would try different things on myself. I experimented on myself because nobody was out there to help me.
That's awesome.
So I...
Yeah, because they'd also look at you and go, "You're perfectly fine. What's wrong with you?
Yeah.
You're fine."
But I want to live a long life. I want to live to 150.
That's awesome.
I'm definitely crazy. So I wake up at 4:30 every morning because I have work to do. I check my emails. I do research. I look at my patients' MRIs and, just work stuff. But I have 3 cups of coffee every morning, black. And while you're fasted, though there might be some research that intermittent fasting doesn't cause as much autophagy as I once thought. But have you ever heard the word autophagy?
Mm-mm.
So basically, think about this. You have trillions of cells in your body, and they all make protein. Every one of them makes protein every day. Protein, whether it's an enzyme or what, all the functionality of your cells comes from making protein. Your DNA is the message, and it makes messenger RNA. Messenger RNA makes DNA, makes a protein. So a lot of times, every cell, 100,000 proteins get made a day, and they make mistakes. So they get misfolded sometimes, and the cell just throws the protein in a pile somewhere, and they accumulate over time. And you can get accumulation of protein if you're always in a fed state. Protein can your body's just so happy. All your cells are just pumping out proteins. It doesn't even care if you messed up a bunch of times, and it just clogs your cells with proteinaceous material. And it's actually the cause of some chronic diseases, neurodegenerative diseases and stuff. So autophagy is when your body utilizes some of these misfolded proteins. It's like taking out the garbage. It recycles some of the misfolded protein. It's called autophagy. It's where you self-eat yourself. You want to do this. So there's several things that cause autophagy. Exercise causes autophagy. Fasting causes autophagy, but it's possible. A lot of the autophagy studies came out of mice, and mice go through autophagy real quick because their metabolism is really quick. And maybe humans, it could potentially take humans a little longer to go through a lot of significant autophagy. So it might be 24 to 48 hours, which is kind of hard to fast that long. But for right now, I like to fast. It makes me feel good. There's some evidence that when you're fasting and you're starving, your body stimulates a brain-derived neurotropic factor, which makes you more aware. And as a surgeon, I'm like, I feel good when I'm fasting. Like, think about it from an evolutionary point of view. When you're starving, you got to be alert. You got to be awake. You got to get some food, or you may perish. So there's some evolutionary reason of why fasting is good for you. So I love that feeling of being fasted. And there's also some molecules that you can consume from foods that have molecules that increase autophagy. And one of them is chlorogenic acid, which comes from coffee, black coffee, and tea. I think it might be in tea. So 3 cups, I'm fasted. I'm drinking 3 cups of coffee, which the caffeine gives you like this euphoric feeling and energy. And coffee actually has some really good antioxidants in it, and they have chlorogenic acid, which helps with autophagy. Other interesting molecule, excuse me for the name, but it's called spermidine. It's found in lots of different foods, especially like wheat germ. I do put wheat germ on my salad for that reason. Another reason to get autophagy. So anyway, I fast.
How long do you fast for?
It depends. Like on the days I'm operating, my first meal might be like somewhere between 2 and 4 o'clock when I'm in the office. Sometimes.
When's your last one?
Well, because my crazy lifestyle, a lot of times I don't eat until like 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock at night. So I have a really short window period of eating. Sometimes my first meal is at 4 o'clock, and my second meal is at my second and last meal is at like 7 or 8 o'clock, But I try to eat through let's say a 6-hour window period, but a lot of times it's 4-hour window period.
How about water? How much water are you taking in?
Water. So in the morning, I try to get I try to get my fluid resuscitation in early. So I house a big glass of water, and then my coffee has water, and then all day long I drink green tea. So actually I stop at 2 o'clock because I don't want the excess caffeine to mess up my sleep. So I'll drink different teas. So I'll start out with 3 cups of black coffee, then with a big water, and then during the day while I'm in the office, in between operating room, I'll drink green tea, and then I'll switch over maybe to some hibiscus tea or some sort of herbal tea. So I get a lot of fluid. I get at least 5 good cups,
And none of that breaks the fast.
No,
none of that
it
breaks
doesn't
the
break the
fast.
fast. Yeah. So I just stay hydrated, and I want to get all my fluid resuscitation early in the morning because I don't want to have to wake up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom. So if you drink your fluid more at the end of the day, then you're going to pee all night long.
Right.
So, okay. So my first meal is a salad. I'm a creature of habit. My wife laughs at me about this. She can't eat the same thing every day like I can.
I can.
But
I can do the
so
same
my
thing
salad
for
is
years.
very engineered. So I do 3 types of green leafy vegetables. I do arugula, spinach, and kale. I do 3 types of cruciferous vegetables: broccoli, cauliflower, and cabbage. Cruciferous vegetables have amazing molecules in them that are anti-cancer, a lot of health benefits. I do 3 different types of berries, different berries like blueberries, raspberries, blackberries. They have anthocyanins, or really healthy molecules. I do 4 different types of seeds that have healthy fats in them. The omega-3s. I get my omega-3s from nuts and seeds, not from fish. So I get like flax seeds and sesame seeds and hemp seeds and chia seeds. They're ground up. And then I do an avocado. And then my salad dressing, I try to be oil free. If I cook, we try to do a little bit of olive oil or avocado oil. But my salad dressing, I make a salad dressing that it's a crema. It's an avocado cashew crema instead of oil. So imagine an avocado crema, that's my fat. And then I put balsamic vinegar. So you know how you do a vinegar and oil type dressing? So that's in lieu of that. And then I add tahini sauce, which is like peanut butter, but it's sesame seeds with Italian spices. And my crema has raw garlic. It has leeks. It has green onions. It has spermidine for wheat germ. A whole lime. Like when I don't just squeeze the lime, I throw the whole lime, peel and all in there.
You eat the peel and everything?
Yeah, well, it's all blended up in this crema.
Oh, okay.
Put it in a food processor, you blend it, it makes this green, like...
It tastes good, Doc?
Oh, my God.
You eat the sticker? The sticker?
No, sticker. I threw the sticker away. There was a laboratory study that looked at all these different types of cancers, and they tested cancer in a petri dish against all these foods, right? And they looked to see, they had petri dish filled with like lung cancer and prostate cancer and breast cancer, and they wanted to see like what foods killed cancer in a petri dish. And it turns out that 2 families really crushed, right? The cruciferous vegetables and the alum family. The cruciferous vegetables are your like broccoli, cauliflower, cabbage family, kale. Your alum family is like your garlics, your leeks, green onions, things like that. And like I'm pretty sure leeks killed every cancer 100% of the time.
That's wild.
So like these are the foods I want to eat.
Yeah, right.
Right? And you can't just squeeze the juice from a leek.
Right.
You can't just squeeze the juice from a leek. You have to eat the whole food. So, the anti-cancer effects of broccoli, for example, there's this molecule that people identify called like sulforaphane. So they thought, well, let's give people sulforaphane extract or supplements, right? And you asked me about supplements.
Yeah, cut that. All right, keep going.
Yeah, you asked about like supplements before, and I really backed off on supplements because most of the research shows the supplement doesn't do the same job as the whole food.
Right.
Like the anti-cancer effects of sulforaphane by itself is not the same as broccoli, the whole molecule,
Right.
the whole thing. And even take like turmeric, the root turmeric. Everyone talks about curcumin, but there's 1,000 molecules in turmeric that are also beneficial.
Right.
And molecules
different foods work synergistically together to be improved. So that's what I do for lunch. And then dinner, my mother-in-law does all the cooking for dinner, and she makes just this amazing meal every night, like loaded with different types of beans, different types of whole grains, maybe barley groats, oat groats, different like maybe quinoa with black beans and lentils and chickpeas and all sorts of different vegetables and mushrooms and just like, I think I counted one day that on average I do about 50 different plants a day.
Oh my God.
Wow.
And that's why I don't really supplement more. The only supplement I think I recommend is B12, because now if you're a meat eater, you can get B12 because they inject B12 into animals. But B12 really comes from bacteria. So if you're eating animals, you probably can get enough B12. But probably most people are deficient in B12. It's a water-soluble vitamin, so it's not hard to take. So I take B12. People under the age of, I think, 65 need like 50 micrograms a day. But once you're over it's harder to absorb B12, so you need like 1,000 micrograms a day if you're over 65. And then I take D3, which is your body can make D3 from the sun, but I don't think I get enough, sun. None of us have.
Sure.
That's something you can easily test. Your doctor can test your D3 level.
What about creatine?
That's my third one.
Yeah.
I take creatine. Creatine is synthetic, so it doesn't come from an animal. My B12 and my B12 and my D3 are both vegan chewies. And then my creatine is also a vegan chew that I do. I do 3 chewies. They're the only supplements I take.
True.
There's actually medical literature, not just in the bodybuilding literature. There's medical literature that creatine can help prevent sarcopenia, which is age-related muscle loss as you age. So I take 3 grams of creatine every day, and then on the 2 to 3 days I lift weights, I take an extra 2, so I take 5.
So if when you're doing like the creatine, is there like, have you gone through that like we would do in bodybuilding through a loading phase of and all this and that, or you just take it?
Well, I've taken it for so long that it does take time to load. You're right. I forget how many days it takes. Maybe it takes a few weeks, but you can just start out taking maybe 5 milligrams a day. I don't think you can absorb a whole lot more than 5 in a day. I think the medical research, the reason I only take 3 is I really take it more for muscle prevention of muscle loss, because I'm 53. I'm not an athlete. So, but on the days I lift weights, I want that extra. So I take 5.
And the other thing is, how's your wife with her cancer situation? And
thanks for asking. Yeah, she's totally, the cancer's gone. They tested her she had breast cancer in both breasts. It was removed through a lumpectomy. She had radiation in both breasts. And they did a lymph node biopsy on one side because the cancer slightly 1 millimeter broke out, possibly invasive, and there was no evidence of spread. So she is now living a life of plant-based, trying to prevent the cancer from coming back or spreading. Because there is evidence that people that eat, like if you look at Japanese women that have high plant-based and high soy consumption, they have very low rate of breast cancer compared to Americans that eat a lot of meat and cheese.
Yeah, my mom went through breast cancer and had the same process. My mother-in-law started working with her, took her off of the meats and everything. So she's been 8 years in remission and no sign of it coming back. So we're super excited.
We want to do. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah,
we want to do everything possible, right? Western medicine, modern medicine's great, but why not do both? Why can't the major cancer centers like MD Anderson and Sloan Kettering and Cleveland Clinic and UPenn and all these places, why can't they recommend a healthy diet?
You're right. It's kind of wild. That's still missing.
They don't tell anybody.
Yeah, I think the major thing was, you said it before, was money. And preventative medicine there's no money in preventative medicine. It's all in post, after you get hurt, after you make, something happens, then we got you right where we want you.
Sure.
The prevention you're free.
Well,
prevention.
also as you know, like to do research costs money, right? And a drug company or a medical device company, there's no money in big broccoli. You know?
Right.
The broccoli farmers of the world aren't putting no money on research, right?
It's so true.
So,
But yeah, so like I know you become very predictable. Like if we have a kid come in here and they're like, we got a combine coming up right now. We're, Clemson's going to be there. I need to run well. I'm like, all right, pay up. I get you there, but you got to pay. That's right where they want you. They don't want you preventing you. They don't want you doing your own work for yourself. So this is a neat thing for you to be able to get into all this data for us, because I mean, this is so awesome. Like I'm really psyched that our athletes will have this edge.
I'm a huge believer in prevention. Everything's prevention. Like, especially, the knee injuries. Like, we have data. I can remember reading a paper 20 years ago. A guy by the name of Burt Mandelbaum. He was the team doctor for the U.S. female soccer team. He did some study in Southern California. I mean, it was like thousands of youth soccer.
I heard this study. Yep.
Soccer. It's called the PAP program, PEP.
Yeah.
Listeners can Google it, I'm sure. I might be
Pretty simple.
quoting it wrong because I'm going off the top of my head. But he basically broke up thousands of little girls into two groups. One group just did what typical coaches do. All right, girls, go out and throw the balls out in the middle of the field. The girls run around the field and they warm up. The other girls did this PEP program. I think it took 15 minutes.
Right.
That was their warm-up, where they did exercises on the field, body weight exercises like lunges and Russian hamstrings and single leg deadlifts and maybe some
bounding,
plyos, some bounding and stuff like that, right? And then at the end of this, just activating their muscles. Right. Ryan and I will get into this. So just activating their muscles. And then at the end of the season, they calculated how many girls blew out their knee, how many ACL tears, how many MPFL tears, how many meniscus tears, all that, right? 88% reduction.
It's wild.
Okay.
15-minute warm-up.
I think it was 8,000 or something like that. I forget.
Well,
I remember hearing that study.
So I came to town 20 years ago, and I'm like, oh, this is good. I'm going to tell all these coaches this. I got in front of a bunch of female coaches, and I was watching them. They were rolling their eyes at me.
Right.
No one wants to believe me.
Right.
No one wants to do it.
It's wild.
It's not hard if you're a coach. Just so Ryan, why don't you talk about this? Ryan and I were just talking, like, the biggest problem we have with these young kids is compliance. Because if the coaches aren't going to do it,
right,
we have to have the kids do it.
Yep.
So how do you get a teenage female before she goes to dance practice or basketball practice?
Right.
How do you get her to spend 10, 15 minutes by herself activating her glutes, her hip abductor, her legs? How do you do it, Ryan?
No, we're still struggling. Because you're also right, and we were going through like different exercises, looking at the PEP, looking at the the FIFA 11 is another one. I think that's come out. Those ACL prevention program, and it's not hard stuff, but some of it's a little silly looking or whatever. So still trying to teach these athletes to do this before they're injured is really hard. After the injury, so you don't want to have ACL number 2. Now they're starting to buy in, but before the injury, it's really hard. And I find one of the best ways is like I always try to correlate prevention with performance. Like, not only is it going to know, and like I'm sneaking it in a little bit, that well, if you're more active, you're going to be able to get off the ball quicker, you're going to play better if you're warmed up, blah blah blah. And by the way, it's going to protect you from an ACL injury. So I think some of it's like the way we speak. They tend to listen about performance more than prevention. And the other way, it's still a battle I have, is trying to get them to do that if they hadn't had an injury already. However, we are starting an ACL club Saturday mornings, 9:00. It's not there yet at our new office, where we're going to actually bring female athletes in. We're going to run them through similar to a PEP or FIFA 11, get them comfortable, and we're going to add more neuromuscular training, controlling knee valgus. So we're going to take kind of what we know in the research and then take some of our anecdotal evidence to take it a step further.
This is almost exactly what the tracer will do automatically.
Yeah, teaches, right.
Yeah.
So we're gonna try to roll it out. I had a lot of interest, and so far when I've talked to people, and I think getting them in a setting, and then thank God this is maybe where social media can help, like showing what we're doing, make it look cool. So we're killing two birds with one stone, is that we're getting them stronger, they're performing better, And they're not going to be calling us on a Saturday and say, I got an ACL, what do I do? And I'm sending them Dr. Tucker's number.
I think the same thing is like the psychology behind telling somebody, hey, this is going to prevent you from hurting yourself. It's like telling somebody to invest into the future.
Right.
When you get your first paycheck in the NFL, you're like, what? I just want to go get a car. Whatever. But it's a hard thing to do. We built in like that into our workouts.
Yes.
They're probably not going to do it on their own, but we built them into all of our lessons, and that's where we'll be able to see. We'll see. Biomechanics are changing and they're fixing as they go. But again, right before the games, we try to teach them how some of these to do pre-practice or pre-game, so you have something to take with you. And it's neat it's neat that you bring it up because.
You figure compliance is an issue, right? So how do you actually get athletes to do this? So the best option, in my opinion, is the coach mandate.
I think we try that again.
Right.
We bring them back and we try it again.
Number one is coach mandated. That's the easiest, right? Okay, coach isn't going to do it. They don't feel like they have enough time. They're not buying into it. You're not going to win. So the athlete has to do it, right? So how do you get the athlete to do it? Well, you say, if they have a workout already, you add it into the workout.
Yeah, it's just part of.
But a lot of times they're in the season and they're not working out. They're just doing their practices. Mm-hmm. So then you got to do what Ryan and I just came up with.
Sure.
Is I was like talking to Ryan recently and I was like, we got to figure out something simple like 10 minutes. If you tell someone you got to do 10 minutes, anyone can do 10 minutes, right? So Ryan and I we thought about like these exercises. What exercise could we do to activate someone's like core hip area to prevent ACL injury? For the listeners, if you think about this, a lot of, especially women are 10 times more likely to tear their ACL than men. And why is that? Yes, there's anatomic differences and hormone differences, but the biggest problem is neuromuscular control. Women tend to be more ligament dominant and men tend to be more muscular dominant, though men can tear their ACLs too. What does that actually mean? All right, imagine this. You're dribbling the basketball down the court, whether you're male or female, and someone pushes into you, and your knee takes a funny little weird angle. The person that's ligament dominant is going to stress their ligament and their muscles never going to contract, never going to protect them. It could be a millisecond slow. The ligament sees the stress, the ligament takes the brunt of it, and it tears. The athletes that muscular dominant, as soon as they get pushed or stumble, their knee gets put in a weird position. The muscles contract a millisecond quicker. Nanoseconds, super fast. It's instantaneous. The muscles contract, protect the knee. The ligament never sees stress, it never tears. That's the difference between becoming muscular dominant and ligament dominant.
It's a neat thing, even when we use deceleration, we talk about deceleration or route running. I played in the NFL for a minute, and we would have more like a doctor come in and show us how we decelerate. I remember him coming in and going, you're trying to decelerate. You're trying to absorb shock, use your muscles and not your ligaments to pull to a stop. That's it. It's not. You just lower your center mass and you'll use more muscle. And he showed us how to do it, and we all bought in. This is what Coach Vermeil is really good at. Bring in the specialists. Charlie Francis came in and talks about hamstring prevention. Although he'd bring in the specialists to do it. So as you're hearing this, believe it. And in the NFL and even in football, what they've done recently is they've given the doctors, the team doctor, you've noticed it probably, that they give you more say into the practice schedule because they've seen it over time. You have to. The coach used to be the doctor. The coach used to be, right? They tell you what to do conditioning wise. They would tell you you're hurt. Just go put ice on it and wrap it up, whatever. Now that the team doctors have a say, here's just too many reps. This is too much. This is why you're having injuries. And they have the last say in practice, not even the coaches anymore. So if you're trying to create something.
At that level, the coaches really have nothing to do with that anymore. I mean, most of the teams have sports science personnel where they're monitoring nutrition and exercise and things like that for sure. Our biggest problem is probably our high school and college athlete.
Right.
And even now, even the younger kids. The younger kids in grade school are overdoing it.
Absolutely.
And not training. They're playing on a bunch of travel teams. And then I'll ask, are you
Are you working out? You know, on the travel team? No.
No, I see.
Not enough time.
I see the shoulder imbalances in a 12-year-old that 6 years ago, I didn't see till like 17, 18-year-olds. Like, it's sad. They're just so overused so young.
This is one of the greatest things. This segment right now, what we're talking about is I reposted something on Facebook a couple of days ago where it would say the gap between skill and athleticism is closed the older you get, and it's just more about the people that were more prepared with better general physical preparedness, and also the skill becomes a little less, and it becomes more about who's more athletic and who has put in more time into their own fitness or their own speed or strength or whatever. That becomes more important than the actual skill, which could be overused and creating injuries. So it's a neat thing that you said that. And you should see the people that we have. They do 10 different things, and they're like, I can't make it in. And we started to say, well, you can't come in then. Don't come in. And it's weird what people do when you say no to them. No, I'm coming in. I'm going to pay you to come in and train. We're like, no, we don't. We're not going to do it. You have to cut out everything else. Maybe do one recreational, whatever sport if you want, just for conditioning. You're going to be in here, and this is your priority for the next 12 weeks. And they go, okay. So they just start cutting back, and then the result is amazing. And I've seen that a million times now. It's like our main fight is taking people out of 10 different sports where they're not training at all. Yeah. Mostly if you're playing a sport, you're learning scheme, right? So you're at a basketball practice, they're telling you how to set up. In baseball practice, they're talking about, whatever. They're not constantly doing things that are making them more prepared for their sport.
Well, Ryan and I are now seeing a lot of problems with the overthrowing. It's and everyone's buying into this pitch count thing now, but it's not just the pitch count, because it's the cumulative effect of throwing all year round. So you're now having like grade school and high school kids. They're on the school team, they're on a rec team, they're on a travel team, and they also have a throwing coach.
Right.
And they honestly are throwing, and when they think of bullpens, they just think of games. They don't think of practice. They don't, the coach, the bullpens, all those things. So you have now someone throwing year round. We are having a record number of high school kids with ulnar collateral ligament injuries to the elbow. And, the overuse syndromes in the shoulder and elbows are unbelievable. There's just too much throwing. Like, kids need to take like a few months off.
Absolutely. And I think like Doc was saying, but also so we're monitoring pitch counts. We're not monitoring throws from shortstop. We're not monitoring throws from center field. We're not monitoring in high intent throws. Like, we haven't got there yet to be like, well, maybe 75 throws, but he had 65 high intent, 10 not. Like, all these variables. And then, like you said, 3 other teams, and then a wiffle ball game, and it's just.
And there's no time. And there's no time for conditioning.
Yeah, and no recovery and no arm care.
Recovery, no time for strengthening their scapula, no work on their kinetic chain, making sure their leg and core strength and rotation is fine.
Yeah.
You get a kid with a weak core and weak legs, and he's doing more arm throwing. He's not using his body and his rotation through his core.
I just read a study, the direct correlation between toe touch, so their hamstring mobility or pelvic compression in youth athletes, and lead leg hip internal rotation deficit. So if they're losing mobility in their legs, they're losing mobility in their. Nobody's looking at this except probably us. You know what I mean? If they're losing mobility there and there, higher little league elbow, little league shoulder. Like, that's kind of.
It makes sense, right? Because let's just say you can't rotate your core.
Yeah.
If you can't rotate during your throw, you're gonna use more of your arm. You're gonna put more stress across.
Absolutely.
In a little kid, there's a growth plate by the ulnar collateral ligament, so they get. I mean, it's actually kind of good, the kid that gets little league or shoulder or elbow, because that's not a serious problem. It's a growth plate injury.
Right.
The pain stops them and they rest it, but hopefully it's a wake-up call for the family. It's happening.
Amen. And that's like, sometimes I always have the conversation with the parents, like, this, you have to look at this as a gift now, because we have 12 weeks. You're shut down from throwing. You can't throw. You're stuck with me. You're going to learn arm care. I'm going to drill arm care. You're going to be doing a lot of this the rest of your career. So, like, get good at it. And again, it's kind of like you said, the silver lining before it's their UCL when they're 16. And now they're missing a year and a half and losing, college scholarship potential.
So it's neat that your windows overlook the athletes in there in the
pretty neat,
BPC,
yeah.
and you just get. I feel like that would be a comfort for me if
Definitely.
I'm sending my daughter over there, or son.
It's-
I don't have a son.
No, it's
Yeah.
cool when we're seeing
Right.
mechanical issue. Then it's a conversation with the coach of like, elbow's starting to bother you. Then we have, video. So we're looking at his throw, and then I'm checking his shoulder internal rotation, and it's heading in the wrong direction. So we can jump on things quicker, which has been.
How much do they give? How much does like Eddie Charlton and them give you like some kind of say when you're just watching
They're-
it happen? Do they say,
I
take it
don't-
easy, man.
So I don't mess with the
Yeah.
throw. I let them I kind of know my
Right.
part. Like I've learned that. Like I will suggest, but Mike Adams, who's pitching coach, he knows like the biomechanics and efficiency of the throw really, really well. But we definitely have discussions. If there's discomfort, if there's anything, it's go see Book, and at least I'm ruling out anything big. If it's anything I'm uncomfortable, go see Doc. If it's something that, and then we can come back to like looking at the throw to say, well, again, is his lead like hip internal rotation starting to lose, so his pelvis is flying open, his arms starting to expose, or is he supinating too much because he lacks shoulder ER, and now he's getting bicep issues, right? So everything comes back to like
The science in the throw is
It's awesome.
Yeah.
Talking about
so
rap-
complicated.
Yeah,
So
it
complicated.
is
rabbit
cool,
holes.
though.
That's by 3 a.m.
It's so
Like
complicated.
I'm still learning. And
The
trying to-
one thing that we're behind, I think, any sport, right? Because what we do is very technical and
Yeah.
everything, and we have all the bells and whistles. We're still behind baseball. They are just the technology in the analysis. I've seen it. Ryan Williams is a kid that we work with really
Sure.
closely. His mom is a cancer surgeon, and the dad is obsessive over all this stuff. And he is. I love you, by the way. And I mean, he has been through so much, and he'll come back and show me, and a huge thing he showed me a couple years ago, was the Proteus.
Yeah, he was
you
on
gotta
it, like-
see this Proteus, man. And now you got one. And
Yeah.
I'm like, this has surprised me. But have you seen this Proteus?
I had
Darn
not first,
cool,
but
man.
I'm telling you, we got to start collecting data on these.
100%. There's so much to learn from it, and like again, I'm a rabbit hole guy to go into the rabbit hole and see
Yeah, it's like
start to see patterns of.
Like our toys, like
Yeah.
he like, hey, can we go over and play with your Proteus? You come play with our Tracer. We'll go play with your Proteus. Like,
Well, it was interesting how Ryan and I just had this kid with a radial head fracture
Mhm.
that that the Proteus picked up some weaknesses. And when you think the kid's rehabbed,
Right.
and he's not.
Yeah, but he was a tough kid, rugby player, radial heads, elbows fine, test out good. But once you start putting him in dynamic positions and seeing, you realize that all his proximal musculature on his dominant side was significantly weaker than his good side.
Yeah.
But if you did a quick objective test on him, quick manual muscle test, even dynamometer test would have been fine. But when you start putting him under load, under stress, it's like bing, bing, bing. So now we can go back and read. Like I think I was so excited. I sent you the picture right away.
Yeah, that's really cool.
so
So,
cool. Yeah,
it's fun.
that's why you got it.
Yeah.
We're gonna take a quick break and we'll come back. We're gonna do like a short shot of a bunch
boy.
of questions we're gonna take. You're just gonna answer them like pretty quickly.
Yeah, sounds good.
Learn to play testing has its limits, and I think the Tracer, and gets me excited, is that if we can hook them up to a Tracer, we can have true objective data even better than what we're doing now. And that's why the return to play testing, it's still evolving, it's progressing, it needs to continue to evolve because we're not perfect at it. But something like the Tracer, like that's kind of game changing for me.
Okay, ready? No heads up. Ready? Here we go. Okay, most important thing as far as nutrition. One thing.
Eating whole plant-based food.
Okay. All right.
that was very broad. but
We got it. Wait, is there going to be? We're going to go quick. We did this with him like
geez.
last week, and
Eat
All
more
right.
legumes.
Effects of smoking on the body.
Causes cancer. I mean, that's the real big problem. Is that taking smoke into your lungs causes cancer?
Give my mom a triple bypass.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So-
I mean, it causes arterial damage too, which you need arterial damage to cause blocking of the arteries. So if you block the arteries in your heart, you get a heart attack. If you block them your neck to your brain, you get a stroke. So it increases stroke, heart attack, heart disease, cancer, not just lung cancer, bladder cancer, and other cancers too.
Best baseball player you've ever seen.
Ooh. I don't know if I can't answer that. I can't answer that. I don't want to.
I saw Barry Bonds in his steroid era So 99, when he was like, they were intentionally walking him with bases loaded. That year to me was like the most ridiculous year of all time. When you're intentionally, really?
Yeah.
It might have been
96,
something
96.
around that. And I was
Yeah.
just, and he was huge.
96 in San Francisco.
Oh,
Yeah.
geez.
I will
Yeah.
tell you this: the first time I met Mike Schmidt in person,
Oh, that,
and he shook my hand. I think I have pretty big hands. Like
right.
I felt like my hand fit inside his palm.
Is he a big guy?
He's
I didn't know that.
When you
Hands.
see the guy barehand a ball from third base, now you
Right.
know why.
Makes sense.
He doesn't even need a mitt. His hands are so
That's
big.
wild.
Okay, so what's your favorite surgery to do?
Oof, that's a tough one. I have a lot of favorite surgeries. I do love ACL reconstruction. I love cartilage transplants.
That's cool.
That's real cool. Label repairs. Probably my top. I'll give you my top three. I can't even. I love them all. I love like what I do. ACL and MPFL reconstructions. That's the primary stabilizer. The MPFL is the primary stabilizer of the patella. I love reconstructing that because people do so well with that surgery. ACL is a really technical, amazing surgery. Doing a cartilage transplant is great. The shoulder labrum.
Yeah, the Bankart stabilization procedures are wild.
I love them. Like
For
doing
the
the
rehab
calcium shift, like shifting that. Brian's been in the operating room.
It's
doing
pretty
that.
neat to watch.
Yeah.
And the osteotomies are like
Yeah.
kind of wild too.
Yeah, the knee osteotomies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, then the next question. What's your least favorite?
Trauma? Do you like trauma?
I still take trauma call. I've now been doing it 20 years. I take level 2 trauma call right here in Atlantic City, and you never know what you're going to get. I mean, I think when you get a bad car accident and someone has 4 extremities the bone is broken through the skin, that's tough surgery.
Yeah.
That's tough. That's tough on the person.
Right.
It's tough on me.
Sure.
Yeah.
Like I'm up all night, like putting that back together.
What about rotator cuff? Just because of the meticulousness, that was it all when I watched him do a rotator cuff.
Yeah.
I could not. Again, I felt really stupid leaving, realizing like how difficult this procedure is.
Yeah.
To actually, especially if the cuff has bad tissue integrity and it's retracted, and the way
I'm such a perfectionist with the rotator cuff. It's a very technical surgery. The rotator cuff is made up of 4 tendons, so I do love repairing a rotator cuff. But sometimes you'll get in there and all 4 tendons are torn and a biceps, and you're there for 2.5 hours with multiple anchors putting together, and it's very time consuming. It's stitching and making sure that there's no tension on your repair or stuff. But I do love it.
Well, how about your favorite rehab?
ACLs are fun because the progression. I usually have them all 9 months, which I love. So I usually have them prehab. Then I get the 48 hours post-op, and then we get them to return to play at 6 month test. Pass the return to play month at 6, then get them ready for 9. So I get to see this and then see them on the field. So I'm at that point, I'm like so emotionally invested in them too. So you kind of see them at their worst and see them back to their best, and they're fun and they can progress quickly. If we manage it early well, we can progress them quickly where it becomes a fun rehab, very dynamic. I love the Bankarts and stabilization procedures too, because I think as a PT, like that's where the art comes out of like knowing when to push, knowing when to hold back, knowing like, well, this is a thrower that had a Bankart. Like they have to get more external rotation. And if I had it, where I'd just be fine if I let them a little tight. But
That's
so there's
complicated.
like there's that. That's where my brain's like, I don't know, like when having that understanding of when I can push, when I can hold back, when how to progress them. I think it's a little bit more of an art.
Experience is real important with that
Yeah,
too. Yeah,
for sure.
One thing that I think Ryan is you've pretty famous for now is just knowing having pretty much the only TP office or PT office where the athlete feels comfortable. It's not a lame environment. You almost feel like you're just in a weight room in a gym. It's like it's a neat thing. And how I was just in your newest office now, and it is just I feel like almost hyped to be in there, and it's a neat thing that you do, but keep the professionalism of and your reputation is like, is awesome for doing that, because athletes going like, man, this is gonna this is gonna be so boring. I can't stand it. And people actually like going to rehab with you. You know,
treat them like an athlete,
Yeah.
remind them they're an athlete, feel like an athlete, not just lay them on the table the whole time.
it's something that like Kev, you know, working with Kevin, he understood that he was having all athletes, and it was like we had music pumping in there, and it was not lame.
It doesn't have to be PT. I never understood this. It doesn't have to be miserable. It doesn't have to be boring. We don't have to be in khakis and the polos and the sneakers. Like we don't have to have Delilah on. We can have some appropriate hip hop, right? Like I never understood. It used to drive me nuts at PT school. I'm like, why are we all like this? Like we can. We're not. Even when you call me doctor, to me, thank you. He's a doctor. He's an orthopedic surgeon. I'm a PT, right? So I think my profession sometimes took ourselves too serious too, and that. You know what I mean? Like
I've been trying to come up with a cool name for mine.
But I don't know. So yeah, that's something that's always been important to me.
Yeah, he does a great job with it. I mean, if you've been sure you've seen his office and everything. It's awesome. It's a place like I've never seen anything like it. So
I gotta come. I gotta check out the new office. I haven't seen the new one.
It's
yet.
pretty cool.
Yeah.
We're getting there too. The gyms. We still need some work on the gym.
But so from Klemic Performance Method Studio here in Egg Harbor Township, New Jersey, we're going to wrap it up and say thank you guys. Thanks for coming out and sharing your information. I'm sure we'll have you back on again. I'm so excited for our athletes and all the people that we're going to help from this information. So thank you very much from the bottom of my heart.
Thank you, man.
Thank
See you next time.
Thank you.